All right, good morning everybody. Welcome to day 2 of Midwest U. Got a couple of people braving the blizzard to get here. I appreciate that. As we get ready to kick off our second day, we're going to have a nice panel of Autodesk discussion panel led by Lynn Allen. But before we get into that, we wanted to cover just a few topics as far as what CTC's been working on, give you guys a little status update. And to do so, I brought 2 of my resident nerds with me. I got Brian Lewandowski, who heads up our technical support teams. And I have Sean Zerbis, technical evangelist. You might know him from some of our YouTube videos that we do in the live recorded sessions, leading up a lot of that. To just kind of start with, to kind of give you kind of a synopsis as far as what we've been working on. Yesterday on the main stage, I mentioned the large amount of YouTube and kind of virtual social followers to CTC's technical videos and the series that we do there. One of the things that obviously coming about out of our new website is that events page to help people sign up and kind of filter and find the content that they're looking for. And one of the things that I had mentioned was kind of these mini training sessions, because as we move from doing these kind of 30-minute or 45-minute technical sessions that we do via GoToMeeting and then put on YouTube, there's many topics that we need to kind of elaborate on or expand upon within that. So we're going to come up with these mini training series for specific topics. And these are directly, from feedback from you guys, where, you saw maybe one of our little 30-minute webcasts and you said, hey, I could really take, 4 sessions of an hour each on that specific topic. And I know, Brian, you've been leading up quite a bit of this on the civil front. What's an example of maybe one of these mini training sessions we might do on that front?
Sure. So we might focus on civil 3D use. Can you hear me?
Try it again.
Yeah. We'd focus on...
it was working now.
We take an example, perhaps workflows.
Just throw that one away. Try it out.
All right. There we go. Civil 3D corridors, for example. Workflows are a big part of it. And so we might, for example, take use of conditional subassemblies and how you might model driveways or something like that. And we would perhaps do like a 3-part series on it and show you that workflow so you can do that stuff internally at your own offices.
Sure, and maybe over on the building side, Sean, what's maybe a mini training session that you've been requested to do in the past?
So we actually have a number that we've been requested, but let's just talk about BIM managers, for example. Maybe there's a mini session, a multi-series mini session on template creation, or perhaps for users, there's a multi-session on stairs and railings.
Excellent. Yeah, thanks, guys. And as I mentioned, these are direct requests from you guys. So please continue to give us feedback as far as topics that you would like to see proliferated within your firms. And we're really open to your ideas on that front to know what's meaningful for you guys. A couple different project highlights. We're involved in a lot of different things, different industry consortiums, building product manufacturers, different government entities as well. And I wanted to just highlight a few brief projects so you guys can understand kind of what we're doing on those fronts as well. The first one listed here is the International Masonry Institute. Sean, maybe you worked on this project. For those that are maybe unaware, what is the International Masonry Institute?
So IMI is a consortium that kind of coordinates between the International Union of Bricklayers and the contractors to help facilitate training and education behind best practices and furthering masonry in buildings.
Yeah, and I have up on screen now some of the documentation that we helped them out with. Can you explain kind of what we did with some of that stuff?
Well, yeah, and a lot of the documentation that's written out there is about standards behind how to model details, what to model, what not to model, what to document, what not to document. And the same thing held true here in the IMI document and the BIM for Masonry document that talks about best practices on all that information specific to the world of masonry.
Yeah, and there's another project we have upcoming that I've heard a little bit about where we're going to be developing something in a website form. Maybe if you can explain what that is?
Yeah, so they wanted to make the content for masonry objects much more accessible. Masonry materials, specific bricks, specific colors, specific types of CMU, and that just doesn't exist out there in the industry. There's a couple of default components that exist inside of Revit right now, but they're not really all that great. So the goal is to make the individual pieces of content much more accessible to the end user.
Yeah, and so why would this effort be particularly of interest to perhaps some of the architects or engineers that are in the audience here for Midwest U?
So the goal is that, guess I got in the right spot there. The goal here is that ultimately It makes masonry much more accessible in Revit modeling for you, specifically figuring out modular brick spacing, modular CMU spacing, doing some validation on that front. So the website is just an initial tool. There's going to be a Revit add-in probably in the near future here coming up that's going to help lay that information out and help validate some of your building modeling information.
Yeah, that's been an ongoing project for us for some time, and I'll obviously be interested in continue following that one. Brian, switching over to you, started doing some work with WisDot. Maybe if you could, just how are they leading with innovation over at WisDot?
Yeah, absolutely. So those of you who don't know, WisDot recently switched to a new design platform using Autodesk technologies, specifically Civil 3D. And so they're really leading the way amongst DOTs and the civil industry in general in terms of moving towards that 3D modeling concept.
Yeah, and what work are we specifically doing for them?
Yeah, so we're just recently entered into a contract with them where as technical advisors, we're going to help assist with internal training, content development, and online training videos for all their consultants across the state.
Very cool. And now for the consultants that are doing work on WisDot projects, WisDot's now mandating a 3D deliverable. How are we helping consulting engineers, placate that need?
So this is something I'm real excited about. This is kind of the driving force behind it. It's one thing for us to move to a new software, but a lot of Civil 3D users out there, we can still use Civil 3D, but we can draw 2D line work in it, right? So what WisDot is doing is they're mandating a 3D deliverable from these design consultants, an actual surface model that needs to be delivered along with the plan set. So this is really one of the key driving forces in pushing that modeling concept and that BIM concept forward.
Nice, yeah, thanks for the update on that one. Going back over to nerd number 2 now, Allegion, for those that are maybe unaware, they're an exhibitor here with us today, but Sean, you've done some work with them. Maybe you can kind of give, hopefully, just a brief introduction as far as who they are.
So Allegion is a door hardware manufacturer, supplier, and spec writer, and we've been working with them a little bit to help advance their visibility and their tool set in the world of Revit.
Okay, and what are we doing specifically with that process?
So the process of doing door hardware specs has been fairly manual with that data exchange. Usually what will happen is the architect will print out a PDF set of documents and hand it off to the spec team. They'll manually re-enter all that information into the background spec database, do some specs, and send it back. And that's relatively tedious. So our goal was to work with Allegion to write a Revit add-in that helped automate quite a bit of that by facilitating just a one-click button process for the architect to send the information over.
Sure, and now why would this work be of particular interest maybe to some of the architects within the room here?
Well, the whole concept of Revit, the revise instantly and hopefully the edit once and edit everywhere kind of concept holds true here with the door hardware spec, where you can click one button, have it sent off, and instead of having somebody manually enter that and potentially have errors, sending back information and having your team manually re-enter that into your door hardware schedule, I mean, that's a big, tedious manual process. This is going to just streamline that and make it much more efficient for you while you're running your hardware specs on doors.
Excellent, thanks. And if you want to learn more about this, as I mentioned, Allegion is one of our exhibitors. Definitely feel free to stop by their booth or come see the CTC guys as well, and we can walk you over there and introduce you and kind of show you what we've been working on with them and for them. So pretty excited with that partnership there. Another partnership where they actually reached out to us is Hilti. And I know, Sean, you've been doing some work on this front as well. Obviously, people maybe know Hilti for their tools, but they do a lot of other things. Sean, maybe introduce them a little bit too.
So Hilti is another manufacturer. Many of you know them, again, for their tools like Oliver mentioned, but they also manufacture a lot of building products, things like fire stopping and other types of major building elements. And the goal there was to help facilitate bringing that information into the Revit environment as well.
Yeah, and so what have we specifically been doing to help or assist with that process?
So they had a master plan where they wanted to take information from Revit to Navisworks and back into Revit again, where you take the components and bring the information out. And the problem was they needed more information from a practical standpoint of who's doing what. And so we consulted with them and helped them with a bit of their development and programming on their fire stop management tool. So this is specifically for fire stopping to help them take Revit wall, pipe, and structural floor and wall data out to Navisworks. Further edit that information, and then bring back resulting fire stopping into the Revit model if need be.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to kind of work with these guys. I actually flew in from Liechtenstein to meet with us a couple different times, kind of talk through strategy, what they were doing around BIM, and what they wanted to do specifically around their fire stop utility stuff, which was great. Who would kind of be an end user? Why is this meaningful as far as this fire stop utility and kind of the approach that they're taking with it?
Yeah, so who would be the user would actually be a lot of the architects and engineers in here. When you're specifying your actual fire ratings or penetrations from the MEP side through walls, you would be giving that information off to the contractor. The contractor then takes that information that you've specified with the fire stop process, actually chooses some fire stopping that's appropriate to the situation in most cases, and then round trips it back to you to put in your model for coordination. So it helps all aspects of this workflow, all users.
Yeah, thanks for that breakdown, guys. And one thing I just wanted to mention is this is just a smattering of projects we're working on. We're obviously in beta testing with a lot of other third-party products that are out there. Mentioned BIM 360 docks the other day from Autodesk. We're also doing some things with 3D robotics around their autonomous drone flight as well. And you'll be seeing more and more from this stuff in the future from CTC. Along the programming front, we kind of talked about some of the industry groups that we're working with, some government entities, and some of these manufacturers. A lot of the things that we're now doing is around custom software development, and it's definitely a point of growth for us as there's specific needs that we're filling within workflow gaps there. And one of the big things that kind of came out of engaging our customers with BIM Project Suite, BIM Manager Suite, and some of our content packs that we put out there has actually kind of needed to kind of fill another need as far as batch processing things. So we've spent about 5,000 hours in development of an entirely new Revit suite that we're now going to be releasing here later on this week called BIM Batch Suite. And maybe just kind of throw it over here. Sean, I know you've kind of worked with clients to kind of specify some of the things that this tool set will be able to do. What is the purpose of BIM Batch Suite?
Well, Project Suite fills a gap on the user side to help with some automation there, and the Manager Suite helps fill a spot on the manager side, as you mentioned, but the BIM Batch Suite really kind of helps that middle ground, and the intent there is to automate a lot of the processes that we do very repetitively, exporting content, possibly importing content or printing components, and so that was the intent with the Batch Suite.
Sure, and initially we have 4 tools in there. Maybe just give me a quick rundown of what those are.
So quick rundown of the tools. We have the family exporter. So in Revit right now, you can save your content out. It just dumps it to one big massive directory. The family exporter actually does it in a much more intelligent way, creating some subfolders and groupings per some of your choices. So it makes that process a bit better. Family loader is actually making a migration. It's currently on the BIM Manager Suite as a free tool, and it's migrating over to the Batch Suite. I felt it was better there. The plotter and exporter tool is probably the flagship tool on this suite. It's a really nice tool set that's going to allow batch printing on schedule and batch exporting of other data. And then the final one there is the project file upgrader, which since 2017 is coming out here in the near future, or if it's called 2017, I suppose I'm supposed to qualify that, right? It's going to help with the upgrade process of your Revit projects in a big way.
Yeah, and just in my kind of interaction with customers, I know the plotter and exporter is probably the biggest tool within this. You mentioned it's kind of the flagship tool. Tell me a little bit more about that tool specifically, because there's been a lot of interest at our booth around that one.
Yeah, so plotter exporter has been a tool that's been in huge demand. Many of you have to go through on a regular basis and every Friday or every Wednesday, maybe both, print out a set of PDFs, possibly at the same time exporting a bunch of Navisworks models and maybe also kicking out a couple DWGs or DGN files for other users of the team. So that whole entire process takes time, and if you have to sit there and do it manually every single week, that's a waste of time. So we built in a scheduler to this tool. It helps you automate this process, put it on a schedule. You can walk away from your computer and have it kick out that information per whatever your settings are.
So I don't need to be at my computer to start the scheduler, kick it off, nothing like that. It's completely...
Exactly.
Nice, nice. So we have Project Suite, as you kind of mentioned, that's users. We got BIM Manager Suite for a very specific role within a firm there. Who would kind of be the end user for BIM Batch Suite?
So in this case, it's probably going to be the BIM coordinators on projects who are doing these tasks repetitively. So every project usually will have a BIM coordinator or a person responsible for these tasks. They can really benefit from this particular tool set.
Very cool. Well, yeah, thanks for kind of the breakdown of that. We're excited to kind of release it. We'll be doing obviously a series of webcasts. We put out really good documentation, tutorials for each one of these tools, and you'll be seeing that stuff from us in the coming weeks as we kind of do these things live. And then obviously as we launch the tool set as well. And if you do want to kind of see it this week, it's fully live, ready to go at our booth, so we can kind of go in more in depth if you have specific questions as far as functionality goes. Coming over now to the civil side. Come on. There we go. As you guys know, Revit Express Tools is one. Civil 3D Express Tools is headed up kind of by Brian and his team from that aspect and the clients that he works with. Brian, maybe just to start, what are the Civil Express Tools?
Yeah. So the Civil Express Tools are a set of Civil 3D add-ins as well as content for Civil 3D users of all types. So we have a number of tools for a lot of different users in there, aimed at be it corridor modeling or pipe networks or survey database management, something in there for everyone.
Yeah, and so the SIM Project Suite, that's programming, right? And what's kind of entailed with that?
Yeah. So SIM Project Suite is a set of tools that install within Civil 3D. And by the way, there's a couple that are free there, and definitely free. And then there's, of course, the paid version of the suite where you get all 6 tools. But that is it's installs as a separate ribbon right in Civil 3D. And as I said, there's something for pipe network management and survey database and all sorts of tools in there that really aim to make users more efficient in the software,
Okay, and this corridor productivity pack, what's that?
Yeah. So this is a pack of content for corridor users. Specifically, it's subassemblies. So a lot of you guys are used to, or perhaps you've heard of, the subassembly composer. The use of it can, it's hard to find time to learn that tool set. And so what we've seen in the industry is that people need these subassemblies kind of built for them. So what we're targeting is more powerful subassemblies, kind of beyond what you might get out of the box. And you think about your corridor models, what kind of information are you trying to get out of them? If we want real detailed cross-sections or more detailed quantities, that all comes back to the subassemblies. And so having the proper, more the detailed subassemblies you need has a big kind of downriver effect. So this is a set of, it's 3 different versions of it, an imperial, a metric, and a min.1 you can purchase. And it's a series of subassemblies in there that have a lot of control on what you can do, such as automatically flipping between different curb types or specifying custom coding very easily to control right-of-way labeling and cross-sections or real detailed quantities. So they're real powerful. We had a lot of good feedback on them, and real excited about them.
So for a non-technical person like myself, obviously, non-technical, who would that benefit the most?
Right. So it's users, the corridor productivity pack is subassembly, so it's corridor users specifically. And it's really about folks who are trying to take their corridor models and go beyond just making a finished grade surface, It's about getting, like I said, cross-sections, detailed quantities out of it, and really kind of taking that modeling to the next level.
Excellent. Well, and now I kind of want to shift gears kind of to what we're developing in the future. We've talked about things that are out now. One of the big things that has been of request is BIMlist Cloud. And Sean, I know you've worked on this, gotten feedback from different firms that we work with, a lot of multidisciplinary, multi-office firms where this comes into play. Before we kind of explain what the cloud portion of BIMlist is, maybe just what is BIMlist for those that might not be using it already?
So BIMlist is a content management solution housed inside of Revit. It allows your users to have sort of one-stop shopping to find component family content, system family content out of projects, schedules, views, like detail views and groups out of project files, and just makes it real easy for a user to search through your library.
Yeah, and now BIMlist Cloud, as we're beta testing this now with some customers, how is the cloud portion coming into that use of BIMlist then?
Well, before I say something about cloud, let me talk real quick about server. BIMlist Server is a tool that takes your BIMlist database and centralizes it within your own network on your LAN or WAN. It's a fantastic tool for that purpose if your users are all behind your firewall and on your same network. BIMlist Cloud is a solution that's been highly requested because in many cases, your users work from outside the boundaries of your office, or perhaps you want to bring other offices, other coordinating architects or engineers in on a project with you, and you need them to have access to your content library in the same way that you do. And so BIMlist Cloud is a solution that's going to help with that end, makes it much more efficient.
So as far as like the end user that's actually grabbing content out of BIMlist, does it change their experience in any way? Like what's that look like for them?
For the end user, it doesn't change their experience at all. They can use the BIMlist in exactly the same way. The only difference is that, they can be anywhere. They could be at a client site, they could be in an airplane, they could be, working from their home office, whatever, and they're still getting the exact same content and the exact same interface.
Nice. As long as they have an internet connection, they're good to go.
Exactly.
Excellent. Nice. So we've obviously been working things over on the Civil 3D Express Tools front as well. Brian, you've been involved in customer conversations on this front. What have we decided to develop, and kind of how did we come to those assumptions to develop these tools specifically?
Right. So the continued development of our Civil Express tools, we have put in place what we're calling an advisory panel, and it's really a series of power users from the industry that we take input from, and they really help us kind of shape the direction and the building out of Civil Express tools. So we certainly have some knowledge in-house, but we don't pretend to have all the answers, and so, yeah, we really value that input.
Yeah, and one of the tools that came out of that advisory group is this Pipe Designer. Maybe just give us a brief kind of synopsis of what that does.
Yeah. This is aimed at Civil 3D Pipe Network users, and those of you out there who use this tool set, you know it's pretty decent once you have that pipe model built, right? Cross sections or quantifying is pretty straightforward. It's nice, but the actual designing of your storm or sanitary network is fairly clumsy. Hardly any faster than just manually typing these inverts and slopes into spreadsheets or what have you. So what Pipe Designer is aimed at is doing something, for example, to be able to set an invert on one pipe run at one end and then specify a slope, an invert drop across an entire run of, say, 15, 20 different structures and automate the actual design of that. So it's really aimed at making Civil 3D pipe networks more of a design tool and not just a modeling tool.
Right, and then we've got these two corridor-specific tools. You kind of explained the corridor productivity pack before. These are now programs for corridors. What are these for?
Yeah. So this is aimed at making use of corridors more efficient, easier. So the first one here, corridor merger and splitter, this is what it sounds like. A lot projects change scope all the time, right? So you might have built one corridor into your drawing, and that has to expand now, or you're modeling it differently now, and you need to split that corridor in two. Very easy with that tool, with a tool like this. The reverse would be to merge corridors, right? You might have built 6, 7, 10 different corridors, and they decided, I should have put those all in one, rather than having to recreate all that stuff and reassign all your targets and frequency settings and that sort of thing. We can just automatically merge those together. And then finally, the corridor target mapper. This is one I'm really excited about. For people who use corridors, you know that it's really about the targeting in your corridors. It's about target mapping. And this is a fairly tedious process. Not just tedious, but also error-prone, right? And so what we're looking at doing here is it's going to allow users to draw target objects on a given layer, and then a subassembly will be mapped to that given layer, and the target objects will automatically pull into the corridor. So the idea of having to go into that target mapping window and manually picking feature lines or alignments on the screen or that sort of thing, it'll be way more streamlined, and you won't even have to really go into that interface. You'll basically draw a line that's going to represent an edge of pavement or something like that, hit refresh on your target mapper tool, and that just gets pulled right in your corridor automatically. So really a cool way to kind of standardize workflows at firms and also just speed up the process of target mapping. So something I'm real excited about, yeah.
Yeah, very cool. And you mentioned kind of the CTC advisory group that you use for the Civil Express tools and also on our Revit Express tools front. And obviously, yesterday I'd mentioned the new wish list website that we have on ctcexpresstools.com. And to kind of kick off that site a couple weeks back, we put out basically a contest for who would submit the best ideas through our new interface. And so now I'd like to actually introduce some wish list winners that are hopefully in attendance this morning with us. The different prize winners in third place. Come on. We're going to get you a new clicker for your section, Lynn. Jude, are you here? Yeah, right. Thank you, Jude. Yeah. He had an excellent idea around Type Swapper. He's going to win a Destech smartphone VR headset. We'll have it at the CTC booth, so you don't have to run up here and grab it. Get that over to you. In second place, Garrett from Shive Hattery, an excellent idea on family processor. He's at Midwest U as well. Where are you at? There you are. Thank you, sir. Excellent. Help us make our tools better. And then our grand prize winner was Tammy, who's also here, I believe. Where are you at, Tammy? There you are. Thank you, Tammy. Excellent idea on Parameter Jammer, where she actually wants to be able to kind of track when her users are using the tool, so she can actually go make those changes kind of more proactively as opposed to using Parameter Jammer reactively. So excellent idea. Thank you. We look forward to implementing all of these ideas in our tools in the near future and future releases. And yeah, stop by our booth to pick up your prizes. And I just want to reemphasize, pretty much everything that we've shown on screen here today wasn't necessarily a CTC idea. We might have refined it, helped kind of scope it, mold the idea to make it more widespread general use adoption stuff. But these are coming directly from our client base. So as you guys have ideas, Revit's nice, Civil 3D's nice, but we wish it could do X, please engage us, and engage us in any format that you see fit. Tweet at us, call us, send us an email, definitely use our wish list on our website, and we love those ideas. It helps us make things that are practical for you guys. So that's what we had for you this morning with CTC. Thank you, and now we'll turn it over to our illustrious panel, led by Lynn Allen. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. My mic on? Yes, yes. Good morning. Yay, early in the morning. How many of you drove here this morning? Got here by 8. I'm impressed. Yeah, I didn't have to drive. I just had to hit the elevator button, and I was whining, so I'm very impressed that you guys are all here. And we're going to have a panel of some amazing people in industry. And many of you contributed questions, and we are going to ask our illustrious panelists about their, going to ask them some of the questions that you submitted, and hopefully get some very exciting answers. And then we're also going to open it up to you at the end for like the last 20 minutes or so. So if, as you're sitting here and listening to the panelists, if you have a question that comes to mind, we would love it if you would be brave enough to ask that question, kind of keep the panel exciting and moving. Okay? All right. Yeah, come on. Okay? We need to be like passing out espresso right now in this session right now. Did you all get your coffee? Very important when we start early, right, is the coffee. All right, so please, let me introduce to you our wonderful panelists. Please welcome to the stage Adam Wilbrecht, who's from the Cunningham Group. That'll wake you up too, the clapping will wake you up too. And we have Taylor Cupp, who's from Mortensen. Eric Chappelle, who's from Autodesk. Stephen Popke from Methods Development, that's the department, sorry, from WisDot. We just heard a little bit about WisDot. So I need my coffee. And then last but certainly not least is Fred Twombly, also from Autodesk. So just to kind of kick this off, because right now you kind of know their names, you kind of know the company that they're from, I would like for each of them to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit more about what they do at their company. And then just to kind of break the ice, it is early, and to kind of make it a little exciting. And I literally just popped this on them this morning, so they haven't had much time to think about it. But I'm going to ask them if they could pick any superhero that they could be. They could be any superhero that's in the whole world. Who would it be and why? All right? All right. So on that note, we will start with you, Adam.
Okay, is my microphone on?
Sounds like it.
Sounds like it's on, great. My name's Adam Wilbrecht. I'm the Chief Knowledge Officer with Cunningham Group. We're an office of about 300 people, headquartered in Minnesota. We have 7 offices domestically, and we're also doing work in China and the Middle East. And we serve all kinds of markets, from healthcare to big name entertainment to schools, so it's quite exciting. My responsibilities are leadership of our IT services, building information modeling, business intelligence, and of course knowledge management, which sort of ties that all together. So it's a bit of a big sandwich, but it's kind of fun to see how this integrated system all comes together and how we build it into the future. As far as the superhero, this has been a challenging one. I've been watching Daredevil on Netflix, so I've really been enjoying that. So I have mixed feelings. I really love his athleticism and all of his skills and the uses of his extra senses, but I don't like that he's blind, and I don't like that he's a lawyer, but it's been a fun watch.
So you are picking Daredevil, kind of.
Kind of.
Okay, all right. Not making a full commitment to Daredevil, but okay. All right, there we go. All right, thank you very much. Let's move on to Taylor.
Yes, Taylor Cupp, I'm with Mortensen Construction. If you're not familiar with Mortensen, we're a builder, general contractor. Our headquarters is here in Minneapolis. We do a lot of different project types. Some of the current projects that we have going that are more notable, we're doing the US Bank Stadium for the Minnesota Vikings, if anyone's a Vikings fan. We're also building Golden State Warriors Arena in San Francisco, and this past week we were also awarded the Milwaukee Bucks Arena in Milwaukee. So we are a builder, but we're also pretty diverse. We don't just serve the vertical construction market. We also do civil work. We have a large renewable energy group that does solar and wind and things like that. So my role personally, I'm with what's called our Project Solutions Department. We're focusing on enhancing what we're doing today and also projecting what we're going to be doing 5, 10, 20 years out and how we're going to build further out. My title is technologist in that department. So what I do is take the current technology tools that we have and look at how we enhance those a little bit and make it so we build better today. And also look at, as I said, 5, 10, 20 years out and starting to look at emerging technologies and how we can start to embrace those and build a little bit better in the future.
Okay, and if you could be any
Superhero. This one I didn't even have to think about. As a young child, I hated clowns, so I had to go with Batman because Batman gets to take care of Joker.
Okay, all right. Because you hated clowns.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
It goes deep.
I can see that. Okay. All right, so next we have Eric.
Yeah, Eric Chappelle from Autodesk. My role is civil community evangelist. So my job is to come out and talk to folks like you guys and keep you informed and get you excited about the tools and technologies that we're developing. And I've been in this role for a year. I've been with Autodesk for about 2.5 years, but I've been an Autodesk customer before that for like 20 years. I'm showing my age a little bit, but so I really get where you guys come from. The superhero question, this is so timely because someone actually came up with this at dinner last night. I was sitting with some other folks from Autodesk, and somehow the concept of a ninja-neer came up, right? So that's what I want my superhero to be.
A ninja?
A ninja-neer. So I'm an engineer. I'm an engineer with ninja skills, right?
Okay.
So I'm stealthy, but I can design a mean corridor. So
Okay.
I want to be
All right.
the
So
ninja-neer.
you basically just made up your own superhero.
I did, yeah.
Okay.
Was that against the rules? I didn't know.
Okay. All right. I like it. Creative. All right. And then next up we have Stephen.
Good morning, my name is Steve Popke. I work with Wisconsin Department of Transportation. I work in their Methods Development Unit, part of their Bureau of Project Development. And a part of our role is to identify and implement design tools and software, and then develop the workflows in order to use those tools. And then as a follow-up from that, we develop the support and the training so that they can use the tools that we've identified. We also look at emerging technologies as well, trying to stay ahead of things, seeing where the industry is going in the future. As part of a superhero, I would say anything that doesn't involve wearing tights. So I'm gonna go with Iron Man because they get to wear the cool suit and fly around.
So who'd you say?
Iron Man.
Iron Man. Oh yeah, that's a good one. And he's rich.
Yeah.
In addition to that, he's rich. All right. So, and last but not least, Fred.
Great. My name is Fred Twombly. I'm an Autodesk Partner Manager. I appreciate everyone attending here today. Appreciate that you took the time out to come to this event. It's a great event. As a Partner Manager, I manage the relationship between our value-added resellers and Autodesk. For example, CTC is a platinum reseller in this area, so one of the best designations you can have. So I appreciate CTC for putting this on. And as far as a superhero, I'd like to be Aquaman because I think with 3/4 of the earth being water, I think there's untapped opportunity for technology in our ocean. So there you go.
All right. Okay. So now when they're speaking, it'll be very difficult for you not to associate that with their superhero. So, all right. So that was just kind of break the ice, get us all, kind of loosened up a little bit so that we can have a nice interactive discussion. As I mentioned to you earlier, we do have certain people that will be answering these questions, but feel free to chime in if something comes to your mind and you'd like to add to that. So moving along, the very first question that we have, what disciplines do you see being the most innovative in their use of technology? And we've seen some pretty amazing AEC projects this week. I mean, not just from a design standpoint, but also from a process standpoint. So I would like to direct this to Taylor to get your feedback on that.
I personally think it's a little hard to pinpoint one discipline and say they do the most innovative stuff. I think it kind of starts with defining what innovation is. And it's probably different for all of us a little bit and for all of our organizations. So I'll talk about it from Mortenson's perspective on what innovation is. To us, it's really about not that one-off single need, not doing something new for that one-off need. It's about taking a need. It could be a gap in process. It could be something that's wasteful and doing something about it and innovating in that fashion to advance that, to meet that need. So going back to that, what that kind of means to us is developing things and doing things so that they can scale across the organization. Not a one-off need again. One of our more notable projects that we've built that's kind of resonated throughout our company when you think about innovation is Walt Disney Concert Hall. We built it in the early 90s. Frank Gehry was the architect. A project that everyone pretty much said, that's unbuildable. We embraced technology to build it, not as Mortenson, not as Frank Gehry, as a project team. And what was so tough about that project was that it was so crazy that no one could figure out sequentially how to put the thing together and how to get it to stand up during construction. They had it figured out how to get it to stand up once it was built, but no one knew how to put it together. So using that as an example on that project, we embraced 4D. And in the early 90s, that was a pretty innovative thing to do. And we embraced that 4D to figure out digitally how to build the project out in front of when we were going to build it physically. So I think that's kind of an example where, that one was more on the architectural side, that discipline. But when you look at all the other things we're doing as a company, whether it's the wind turbines I talked about or whatever, there's things going on like that you can take from the technological side of things and scale across any of those industries. And those seem to me the most innovative ideas that are what drive the organization forward.
Great, that's a great answer. You guys are working on some amazing projects. You all want to go work for them, don't you? Don't you want to work on the stadium? No? All right, so let's move along. So for the next question, what are some different market sectors that are fully utilizing BIM? And I'm going to give that one to you, Adam.
All right, thank you. It's interesting that you mentioned Walt Disney Concert Hall. I actually had the opportunity to be a draftsman on that project back in '97. So, but that was an interesting time where in that time it was CATIA, which was, has evolved into Revit and the BIM we're familiar with. That's really our industry driving the technology in order to make a value proposition for us. I'm lucky enough to work in an office that serves multiple market sectors, and as we've been growing rather rapidly, we've been introduced to new markets, and we're really seeing now our customers, our clients are becoming much more savvy and seeing the value in BIM. So we're starting to see BIM execution plans come from our clients. I don't know, hopefully everyone here is familiar with BIM execution plans. I think they're just going to be a vital component of our workflow in the future, especially for successful delivery. So, right now it's healthcare. These are clients that have huge portfolios, billions of dollars in properties. Our big name entertainment clients, some of which I can't mention unfortunately, but they're incredibly sophisticated now, and they're coming to us with instructions on how to build the BIM models. So we're not just using the BIM models to do the 2D drawings that we've been doing for 100 years plus now. We're now delivering the models off the back end for their use. Now, the use of the models varies widely right now. That hasn't come into any sort of formal protocol or anything like that, but we're very much now have to be responsive to building a BIM model to someone else's specifications.
Right. Okay, great. Thank you so much. Okay, so for the next question, we're going to shift over and we're going to ask one of our Autodesk panelists. How is Autodesk partnering with industry groups to better their products for specific workflows and industries? And Fred, if you could be kind enough to take that one.
Sure. So as you saw yesterday at Autodesk, we're reaching out to customers, resellers, industry groups on a daily basis in the AEC, manufacturing, and media and entertainment world. And I think as yesterday you saw with three great examples, we work with 3D robotics and their drone technology, helping construction site workflow. We're working with Boeing on making a lighter crew partition to make their flights more efficient. And probably the hottest topic recently is working with hospitals in their airflow to cut down on airborne diseases. So that's where we're going and things that we're trying to help with.
If I can,
Sure.
I'd like to chime in on that too. Recently, you may have even seen the news, the U.S. government has put on this Smart Cities Challenge, and they've gotten it down to 7 finalist cities. And some of the cities I remember are San Francisco and Pittsburgh, which is the area I come from, so go Steelers. And other cities, but in a partnering arrangement and just in the interest of helping the industry and helping these cities, we are actually partnering with these cities. We're giving them InfraWorks 360 access and also helping them get trained and up to speed with the product. And they're going to be using InfraWorks as a primary tool for developing these smart cities projects to ultimately there will be a winning city in the final competition. But we're helping those folks out with the use of our tools and also some training and help getting started. So
Great.
excited about that.
Yeah, I'm excited about that too. There's been a lot of press about that. I've seen it on the Twitter sphere.
Oh yeah.
Quite a bit. So, and then I'm going to give you the next question. So that was perfect that you ended on that one. I'll let you start on the next question. Next question, where do you see InfraWorks in 5 years? How many of you are out there are using InfraWorks or have ever used InfraWorks at all? Have any InfraWorks? All right. Okay, good. I bet you next to that number, there'll be more hands that are up. So where do you see it being in 5 years? And do you think that it has the potential to replace existing design platforms?
Wow, that's going to be a fun question.
Yes. Good luck with that.
Well, in 5 years, I think InfraWorks 360 is going to be your design tool of choice for civil engineering. 5 years is a long time, and when you look at the development cycle of this tool, and if you've been paying attention, we've been releasing new versions of this tool, not just updates, but new versions, basically on a quarterly basis. We've never, to my knowledge, developed a tool with that much speed. So where it's going to be in 5 years, it's just mind-blowing. Now, the second part of that question is about it replacing existing design platforms, and we all know what you're talking about there. We're talking about Civil 3D, right? And I know there are some folks in the room here that were sitting in on the user group meeting yesterday evening, and I hope I made it really clear that Civil 3D is not going anywhere. It doesn't even make sense for InfraWorks 360 to replace Civil 3D in really any time frame that makes sense. And the analogy when I think about it, Civil 3D is actually happy that InfraWorks arrived on the scene because since Civil 3D since its inception, you folks and me back in the time when I worked in production, we were using Civil 3D to do everything, and including that early preliminary design where you've got to create a lot of options and communicate a lot of design intent to clients. And we use Civil 3D because that's all we had to use. But now there's a tool that has come on the scene that is going to do that so much better. And the analogy that I was thinking of with this, it's like if you started a band, right, and you don't have a lead singer yet. So the bass player does the singing. He's not the best singer in the world. He plays a mean bass, but he's all you got. So he does the singing for the first couple of years. And then finally, you land that iconic, charismatic lead singer. The guy that's good looking and can work the crowd and really sell the idea, the concept of the band. And in that analogy, Civil 3D is the bass player. It's been doing all the hard work, but also doing all this upfront project stuff of coming up with designs quickly and communicating them to the customers. And now the lead singer arrives on the scene, InfraWorks 360, and it does that so much better. And the bass player's like, finally, I don't have to sing anymore. I can let this person do this. So that's how I think it's kind of falling into place. Is Civil 3D is not worried. It's happy to see InfraWorks 360 on the scene. So if you're sitting back waiting for one to replace the other, you need to stop waiting, because that's not going to happen anytime in the foreseeable future.
Okay, thank you. I did not know that software products could be happy.
They can. They absolutely
Who
can.
knew? This one, Civil 3D is happy. That's good to know. That's good. And they're complementary.
They are.
Civil 3D is not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah.
That's
Yep.
very, very important. All right, so thank you very much. Let's move along to the next question. So what technology is having the largest impact on the transportation industry today? Obviously, this is going to be pointed towards you, Stephen. And what exactly does that impact look like?
I think there's a few technologies out there that are having quite a large impact. On the design side, just the ability to produce a model, that gives us the capability to have a much more dynamic design process. We can leverage the tool now to almost, it can help us solve the problem within itself. You can have like a design surface or a setup, what we call a setup corridor, and then you can leverage using those surfaces or corridors to give you the answer to produce your final surface or final corridor. So it's just a much more dynamic process that cuts down on the iterations that are needed to get to our final solution. And then as a result of producing these surfaces, that gives us the ability to convey design intent in a lot of different ways that we couldn't before, through the surfaces. And then it gives us the building block to do a visualization or show that to the contractor. It's another aid or a tool to convey our design intent, or what we're trying to accomplish. Before we used cross sections, and you kind of had to use your engineers or your mind's eye to see that design. Well, everybody kind of interprets that a little bit differently, whereas now you have that picture that everybody can see in the same light. On the construction side of things, again, picking up from the surfaces, now our contractors are using, this technology has been around for a while, but it has a huge impact, is the GPS technology and the use of the surfaces and their AMG or automated guidance, machine-guided equipment. They can take the surface, enhance that surface, build their construction model, push that out to their equipment. Overnight, when they make that, they don't have to, make sure Bob got the plan sheets and he's on version 2. It just all happens automatically or gets pushed out there. So then, that saves time and production and construction. Not even waiting for a survey crew to put those stakes in the ground. It's all much more automated. And then I see on the horizon there too the use of the cloud technology, where we park our data and where that information can be accessed. It's just much more powerful process.
Okay, any other comments? No? All right, well, thank you. Thank you very much for that. And then next question, what technology, either related to BIM or outside, do you see as interesting or promising? And I'm going to give that one to you.
Thank you, Lynn. There's two technologies. One that I'm interested in, I'll spend a very brief time on. This one is just reality capture. The whole idea that it's fun, it's the shiny object. Oh, my microphone's going to fly off here. You get to fly a drone around a building and scan it and bring it into your computer and start manipulating it. It realizes a lot of hopes and dreams we were wanting for BIM and being able to play with fun technology. But the other one is really what BIM is all about, especially as we're looking at integrated project design now with, it's this design to fabrication. But it's not just the technology, it really requires the right relationships and the right people accessing the BIM model and taking your design intent and doing their part of the job, which takes away some of our part of the job, which can be good and bad depending how you measure it. But this whole era of shop drawings and drawing things twice it starts to eliminate that duplicity, and I'm sure Mortensen likes the idea of compressed timelines for getting design out to materials in the field. So I see that one as being the most interesting right now, and it's you know, the future is now with that. It is really reality, but it still has to come along. I think our contracts and our insurance and even our legal system needs to catch up to realize this vision.
Okay, great. All right, so thank you very much. You're gonna hopefully get that sorted there.
Figured it out. Technology.
You can see today I'm using a lapel mic because went so well yesterday with the one over my ear. So I can definitely appreciate mic troubles. So this one is open to everybody for the next question. What are some of the biggest challenges, a big question, what are some of the biggest challenges that are facing the AEC industry in the future? So I kind of figured anybody who wanted to address that one.
I might start
Okay.
and piggyback on what he was just talking about, because I think it's a good segue. In the build world, one of our biggest challenges is labor shortages. We've been projecting it coming for a while, where there's kind of this transition out of all the baby boomers we had to build our projects to them kind of going away, and newer, more technologically adverse individuals or technological individuals to build the project. So we're trying to combat that and figure out what to do about it. A lot of it goes back to what you just mentioned, streamlining those workflows, designing faster to fab faster. So where we're seeing this going is where in the past, we were going to our projects, people were bringing materials, we were putting the materials up. We're prefabricating things a lot more now. Now that's not the ideal state. It's not where I think we're going to be in 10 years. I think we're going to transition that a little bit further, where we're bringing those prefabricated elements, the kit of parts, putting the building together, to maybe a little more of a workflow where we're mixing robotics with those prefabricated elements with humans and building a lot more efficiently because of that with less people, which is what we're going.
Yes, the labor issue is a real big one. A design intelligence article came out yesterday saying that fully 1/3 of the architecture profession is over the age of 55.
Yeah.
And we have 2 lost generations under them. That's going to be a huge issue to...
And out of necessity comes innovation,
Yes.
right? So,
Yes.
so I think that challenge is going to end up being a really positive thing, because it'll allow us to work together in a much more tighter knit fashion.
Yes.
To design our projects, build our projects, and operate our projects on the owner side.
Absolutely. I found that when I talk to my peers regarding, if I stop calling you contractors and start calling you fabricators, it changes the tenor of the conversation.
Yeah.
It becomes much more collaborative. It isn't this us and them sort of historic offset. It gives us a much more common ground to think about how the building is designed and ultimately fabricated.
Definitely.
So did I hear you right? There's going to be a shortage of architects? Because my daughter is studying, my daughter's 17, she's going to be an architect. So, and I'm a civil guy, so I'm okay with that. You know, that's fine. And I'm happy to know that she's going to be, you know, have lots of opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah, there's also these articles now about, will your job be replaced by a robot? Funny enough, they're saying architects and architecture is not a discipline that will be replaced by a robot. There's just too much intellectual capital and the creative element that can't be duplicated.
Good to know.
Good for many of you to know, I'm sure.
I'd also like to kind of go in a different direction and talk about the cloud. I think one of the biggest challenges facing the AEC industry is, you know, there's a reluctance to fully utilize the cloud, and there's a lack of understanding of whether or not the cloud is secure. And I think that all needs to come together so that everyone can feel safe and secure and willing to do things in the cloud. I know a lot of you work on government projects and projects that have a certain amount of security to them, and there are obstacles there in doing those projects using cloud solutions. So we need to overcome those obstacles, I believe.
Right. But we're getting more and more government agencies that are willing to work with us, even with their tight security standards.
Right.
And that are starting to embrace the cloud, little by little.
Yep.
Yeah. So, anyone else? You don't have to say anything. All right. Then we're going to move on. a little bit too fast. See, the clicker is super efficient now. So how is Autodesk working with the DOTs to encourage adoption of their technologies? Obviously, Stephen, this is going to be for you, such as Civil 3D.
Civil 3D.
The happy product.
Yes, the happy product. That lives happily ever after with InfraWorks. Yes. Yeah, Autodesk is very engaged in learning how we use Civil 3D. We have a great relationship with Autodesk, and as far as communication, I think we talk to someone at Autodesk every week on something. Very engaged in learning about the feedback areas we identify, at least in our workflows that might be pinch points or areas that might be able to be improved or enhancements, and then also collecting our feedback on certain processes or functionality that maybe can get implemented, whether we do it on our own through custom development or if it's something that can have a large impact on other DOTs, maybe they can roll that into products. So potential recommendations. So they're very, very open into listening to what we have to say. Whether or not where that goes from there, so that it depends what it is. But communication is the key, and I think it's working out well.
Good. All right. So for the next question. So I'm going to address this one to Eric, but any of you have certainly something might pop into your minds to chime in as well. So what can smaller design firms do to help steer the direction of technology development and adoption? And I'm sure that we have many smaller design firms out there, and maybe you're trying to figure out exactly how to embrace some of this amazing technology that you've seen this week. So Eric, any comments?
I think it's pretty simple. Not necessarily easy, but a simple concept that smaller firms are smaller and more agile, so you can adopt technology more quickly than some of the bigger firms that you might be competing against for work. So InfraWorks is a great example of a tool that's kind of at an early stage in its adoption, and a smaller firm is much more capable of grabbing onto that tool, embracing it, learning it, and taking it into their projects and getting ahead of the bigger firms that are going to adopt it later on. So now you're going up against those firms in a competitive situation, and you're able to bring a tool like that to the table and win out and beat them out for work. So to me, that's very powerful. So just the fact that you're smaller and more agile means that you can try different things out, you can pivot more quickly, and get out ahead of the big guys.
And I think that the fact that the smaller corporations or design firms are more agile and they can make decisions, they don't have to take it to a board and get everybody's approval and all that, it definitely evens out the playing field, which is great. Some of this technology that you can embrace quickly is going to help you be more successful when you go up against some of the bigger design firms. Maybe. We're hoping. All right. As long as you embrace it.
I have to be careful because we have some bigger firms up here.
Yeah, and we
on the
love
stage
our
with
big
us here,
firms.
so
I'm just saying.
no offense.
But there's always the.
It's very true that a much smaller firm now can compete on much larger jobs because they can leverage the technology. You basically have to compete using different criteria, not just we can deliver this.
Right.
Okay, any more comments on that? No? All right, moving along. And we're almost getting to the end of our questions, and I hope that you're coming up with some amazing questions as we've been sitting here. All right. So what is the biggest technology implementation you think your firm should be doing, but are unable to find the resources to implement at this time? And I'm going to give that to you, Adam.
I kind of hate this question in a way, but I actually, instead of vetoing it, I embraced it. Because I think that this only works if you agree with me on two promises here. The first promise is that technology will always get faster, more powerful, and cheaper. The other promise is that Revit is a great collaborative tool. There's an issue with that. Revit is a great collaborative tool inside your firewall, inside your local area network. One of our biggest expenses, if not our biggest expense, is to invest in technology and equipment to allow Revit to work outside of the local office. So in the past, there was Revit Server, remote desktop. It's been evolving. There's virtual desktops now. There's collaboration for Revit. There's constant development, but now there's sort of a wealth of options. None of them are just as good as in-house, but it should get better. But that's our biggest impediment right now, is realizing the promise of Revit. And hopefully, at some point, Autodesk can get to a point where Revit is no longer our biggest IT expense, and it's our biggest value proposition.
We don't want Revit to be your biggest IT expense, I promise. I promise. Does anyone else have a comment from Autodesk or on that? Nope, don't put them on the spot. Nothing like being put on the spot. Okay, thank you very, very much. And moving along, we're going to give this one to you, Stephen. What's the biggest challenge facing large transportation agencies in moving to newer and better technologies?
Yeah, so this is kind of the flip side of what Eric was talking about with smaller agencies. Right now, our biggest challenge, I think, is just the rate of change, or how quickly technology is advancing and keeping up with that, or staying ahead of it. Because like you said, where a smaller firm is a little more nimble, we have to look at things from, first we have to evaluate it, and technology is changing so fast that, talk about a 1 week and look at a set of tools or a platform that we might be considering implementing, and then talk about next week, well, that was sold last week, that was 20 seconds ago, now they got version 2.0, like you're saying, they're coming out with a different version all the time. So kind of selecting those tools or platforms that we can build upon and continue to build upon, versus changing direction all the time. Something that can grow as we grow in our use of technology. And then once we adopt that technology, the volume of people that it impacts is pretty significant for us, not only within our agency itself, but statewide. How that affects them, we have to develop standards then for them to use that technology, and then once we do that, we develop the training so they can learn how to use the technology. And then when you think you're all done, you got that all taken care of, then you got to update your training again, because as, things keep improving. Like Civil 3D, for instance, we've got a pretty good library of Civil 3D training out there, and that feels pretty good. But then now there's new features and tools, and we're learning that our training is a little dated now, so we're in the process of updating that and keeping on top of that. So I guess just keeping up with that rate of change and kind of looking ahead with the big picture in mind.
I guess it's a good thing you've got a partner like CTC to help you out with that, right?
Perfect answer.
Yeah, that's right.
How many of you feel a little overwhelmed this week, having seen all of this technology that's out there? It's kind of like, where do you begin, right? Where do you start? And just to, once again, to second what Eric said, is that's really where CTC comes in, because they can help, get to the technology that you absolutely need in your industry to be successful. There's no way you can embrace all of this technology that you've been exposed to for the last 2 days. But there certainly is a way for you to, to address some of this technology and utilize it to help you be more successful in your industry and in your field. So hopefully we didn't scare you off with all this technology, and hopefully we've opened your mind up to some great ideas that can help you be more successful. And if you get confused, once again, CTC will be there to help you out. So that is the end of our official questions. So do we have any brave souls out there that have a burning question? We have someone who's going to be helping with microphones. So where are our mic people? We have one over there. We just have one? You're going to get a big workout. Okay, all right. And we especially hope someone right in the middle will ask a question. Because we think that'll be the best, most exciting and challenging. Does anybody have any questions? And you can pick a specific person to ask, or you can just ask the whole panel. You got a question back there, great.
Yeah, this is for the gentleman from Mortensen. We're in structural engineering, and we're in a place where we're developing a certain level of detail or level of development for design, and we see a gap between that level of detail and development and fabrication level. What value do you see in AE firms providing a higher level of development or detail in their models versus stopping at 300 and handing it off to somebody else to restart or take it to that 400 or constructible model?
Right. Means and methods plays partially into that, right? And how you attack that. But when you take a look at our projects, and structural detailing in particular, that's it's almost always on the critical path. That's what gets us going, gets us out of the ground. So I think if you take a look at certain segments of it and what's on the critical path and start to attack those certain segments so that you can streamline those and do exactly what it sounds like you're maybe advocating for, where you go direct from design to fabrication, then you can really start to streamline that process and eliminate some waste. Whereas right now, what we're doing is, I think what was explained before, where you've got this model, the design model, you pitch it, you go into construction. You've got your construction model, and at some point, we probably roll into an FM model, hopefully someday, and that gets pitched. So anything we can do to do what you're talking about and take that model and have it truly be a shared model where it's added onto throughout the process, everyone wins in that scenario. And structural detailing seems to be the first one that's probably going to get there, and that's going to happen on. That it has happened already on some projects.
Great question. Thank you, Taylor. Any other questions? We're friendly. We have one right over here.
The middle one.
Well, to give us just a second, we'll get a microphone to you. Someone's coming to you. Pass the mic. There we go.
So we're seeing a lot more adoption, widespread use of plugins, productivity tools, third-party vendors. What can the average user do, smaller firms maybe, to protect their intellectual property, client confidentiality, from big data being mined by these companies? Perhaps even Autodesk having access to information. Any experience or tips for that?
I've got some thoughts on it. Tips are a little harder being in an era of big data, but this was an issue that came up, especially when collaboration for Revit came out. I know amongst the large firm roundtable that I participate on, the first question is, we're uploading our models to Autodesk. What are you going to do with them? Are you going to check out how much drywall is being modeled and sell that information to the gypsum industry? No. We've got plenty of promises that the data is only used for performance purposes. And, then the next EULA comes out and you click the button, yes, I agree. Did you read it? No. I think that's a good question overall, and I think you made a good point about intellectual property, because the intellectual property now, is it ours? Is it our clients? Every contract we execute, that's actually a negotiable point. We have plenty of clients that say, you will give us the BIM model and we have full ownership of this, especially if it's some sort of branded product. So you do have to take it case by case. Now, these plugins, I think you have to look at them individually to see if they're actually extracting information, especially if you're using glue and you're putting that piece out there. But I think to realize the vision of BIM, at least from an architecture standpoint, we have to think of the model being more as sort of the scaffolding for each successive custodian of the model to kind of pull out our stuff and put in theirs. You're going to have an elevator, we'll draw an elevator core at level 200, 300. The elevator maker will come in and put in their level 500 content. I think by the end, by the time the building's turned over, there might be no more actual digital content that the architect put into that. Right. It's all been swapped out by the actual fabricator. So it gets into philosophy at this point of who owns it anymore. So that's just going to have to be, I think, an intellectual bridge and maybe even a legal bridge for us to cross in order to realize the vision. Otherwise, we're going to go back into entrenching in our camps And I think what we're going to see is, frankly, the contractor fabricator rebuilding the model and then selling that to the owner, and our design's already just been recreated and handed along.
Anyone else have a comment on that? No.
Only that I'm glad he took that question.
Yeah, it's a good one. I know from an
Really-
Autodesk
yeah, it's really
standpoint,
good.
we're very focused on your data being your data and not our data. And we are trying to go to great lengths so that you feel that security aspect and that we're not, we don't own it, you own it. We're just trying to give you the resources and the platform so that you can get the most out of your design to be successful. And part of that includes the cloud. And this, we have worked so hard. We're like the biggest security department I think I've ever seen anywhere to make sure that your designs are secure. Because we absolutely feel at Autodesk that the future is built completely around the cloud for the most part. And if we make even one mistake from a security aspect, if there's a problem with any of your designs that gets leaked out or the security is compromised in any way, guess what? We are out of that business. We are absolutely out of the cloud business, and that's going to, that would devastate us. So we're trying very, very hard to make sure that you know and you feel secure that your intellectual property is your intellectual property. Looks like we need to do better at that, though, by the sounds of things. So, all right, any other questions? Preferably far away from where the microphone is right now.
Right down the middle.
Right there. Did you already pass it back down? It's coming. That's another way to keep you guys awake, too. It's a game called Pass the Mic.
I guess this is more of a suggestion to Autodesk, but one of the things that have been really difficult is to protect your intellectual property, because once your model is out there, it's out there. One of the things that I suggested a little while ago is, why not just build some kind of a parameter that has a password that you can put your firm's name on it, so that if somebody else is using it, you know that the content doesn't belong to them.
So the concept is kind of like a watermark that's burned into the content
Exactly.
that's indelible, that can't be removed. Mm-hmm. That's a great suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, really good suggestion.
And it will be hacked within 3 to...
No, that's a great suggestion. That's a fabulous suggestion. We will take it to the people that make things happen.
Right.
The people. Yes.
I just have a quick shameless plug on that. Within our Revit Express tools, we have a tool called Watermark, and it actually embeds encrypted data within the file itself that can only be decrypted by the password that you placed upon it. So if you want to check that out, that's one way of doing it, but it is not visual within the object itself. And it's only if you're kind of taking a look or parsing a bunch of content are you going to see that watermark. So something you can do there. Another
Very
question
good.
over here.
I hope. So he was a plug, right? A plant. You set him up for that, right?
The plant.
He was a plant, it's not a plug, yeah.
Unrelated
If you were
question,
sitting
sorry.
closer to him, I'd believe that. I had to pass the mic way down.
That's true. He was a good plant because he was so far away. Yes?
This is kind of jumping off of what was said earlier with a new version of InfraWorks being, pushed out every 3 months, something like that. Anyone who's been working in Civil 3D has had the experience where they have an error message, something's not right, you start looking for it and you find your exact situation in a forum post from 2003, and it still hasn't been addressed. I guess I'm asking at what point you're going to start switching some of the resources from brand new, faster widgets to fixing the things that have been not working correctly in the program for a while now.
Oh, and applause.
Aren't we
Eric?
out of time?
Oh, look at the time.
I think we have to go. I said this in the user group meeting last night. You folks are all in the game of making money at doing what you do and love, and so are we. And it's always a balancing act. We want to fix everything, and we want to make all the new tools that you guys want to use. So we have to choose and prioritize what we're going to work on every day. We do commit and try our best to fix what we can, but at the same time, we've also got to build our future as well and build the new tools. So there's always a balancing act. And I think you're going to be very pleased if you're a Civil 3D user with some of the things you're going to see in the upcoming release. Because the kinds of things, that some of the things are things that you guys have been asking for a while. And I think you'll feel the love when you see that release. But just always know it's a constant balancing act for us to put out new technologies as well as address what's going on with the old technologies. And we're always doing the best that we can. And let us know. I mentioned last night too, the idea stations. We've got an idea station for Civil 3D and one for InfraWorks. And it's a place where you can post ideas for things that you want added to the software or things that you want fixed in the software. And it's not just your voice being directed toward the product team. It's your voice in the community, and the community can support you and vote for your idea that you've posted. And even the folks in the room last night even identified that they've seen a lot of Autodesk product team activity in the idea station. These guys look at it and they really value it. So use that tool because it lets you submit your idea as well as gain community support for it. So you're not just one voice in the distance, asking for this to be fixed. You can actually gather up support behind you. So tough question to answer,
I sense your frustration.
We are listening and we're doing our best every day.
Absolutely. And even though we are focused on new products, we still know the importance of continuing to develop, in some cases, correct issues in the existing products. So we haven't forgotten about them, I promise. So, all right. Any more questions?
Yeah, there's one.
Maybe like one more?
Following up on those legal and intellectual property questions from earlier, I like to ask this question every few years at least. We're increasingly in a position as architects and consulting engineers where what we're generating is a model and a package of data, and you're increasingly in a position as, at least in Mortensen's case, an integrated construction company, where what you're using and adapting is a package of data. But the legal and contractual environment still means that what we are producing as contract documents is a set of 2D drawings. Do you anticipate that changing? And how, if at all, do you anticipate that changing over the next 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, you want me to start? I think that's kind of maybe
It's
a little bit
of both of us. I'll speak for the contract documents. I hope it changes. I'm finding the AIA contracts, insurance as well as the legal piece, completely out of sync now. SD, DD, CDs, they're just billing milestones at this point. The iterative process of BIM, design validation, cost validation, energy use validation, all of these things are happening at rapid pace. It just happens to be, you kind of blow through SD on your way through to DD, and some of that content's already built in, either through templates, things like that. So it all has to catch up. As far as the intellectual property piece, again, I think that's something that your firm has to come to peace with, of what is the intellectual property. It's the design itself. I don't think it's the artifact so much. That's a collaboration tool. The design and the intellectual property has to be understood in a different context.
The question of if we see that changing, I'm going to answer that with no, not if we stay with our current contract delivery methods. If we stay the path of design, bid, build, I think that's really limiting us in what we're doing with what you're talking about. As we start to evolve some of those delivery methods between us, the architect, the owner, the entire team, I think that's when the IP thing kind of starts to go away, because everyone's a little more under the same umbrella instead of these fragmented groups out trying to do their own thing, not deliver a successful project.
I also think a firm has to understand up front, again through the BIM execution planning, if you're building a model to generate 2D documents, fine, but keep that in mind. Don't overdraw, don't put in everything. But if you're drawing for coordination, you are putting the baby in the bathwater into the model, but you should be compensated for that. You should structure your contracts and understand how much extra work it's going to be to put in that COBE data for the mechanical systems, for example. All of that. It takes time and stewardship from the team to get it right, and to make sure it's still right after Joe intern messes with the model for 5 minutes and sets you back a few.
Okay, Joe the intern.
Yeah, we don't like Joe the
We do not like Joe the intern.
We like intern.
It's typically
They
Joe
use
the,
Grasshopper.
It's typically
Dynamo.
Joe the principal, though, isn't it?
Joe the principal. All right, well, I think that is our last question. Now, if you didn't get your questions answered, you're just about ready to ask a question, or if you just didn't want to ask it in front of everybody, I'm sure that our panelists will be happy to answer your questions throughout the rest of the day for the ones that are, going to be hanging around. I know we have a flight. A couple people have flights they're taking out, but I would like, if you would be so kind as to give a nice warm round of applause to our great panelists. Thank you. We certainly appreciate your time and all of your wisdom, and I'll turn it back over to you.
Yeah,
All right?
and I just wanted
Are
to
there
say,
any more slides, or?
nope, that's it. And thank
Okay.
you so much, Lynn. We appreciate
of
you coming
course.
out. Multiple years now. Big round of applause for Lynn and the
Thank
work
you.
that she's
Thank you
done for our
very
event
much.
too.
My
Thank you,
pleasure.
Lynn.
All right.
And thank you to the rest of our panelists, to Adam, Taylor, Eric, Stephen, Fred. Hey, have a good one, guys. Thank you.
He's out.
Let's go to flight.
He's out.